I got into Airtel to get the first prepaid mobile wallet license out from RBI for a telecom company to get into payments.
Yeah.
Had the opportunity to interact with somebody who was then the CEO for Airtel M-Commerce, who actually pitched this vision of imagine if we could do this. And that imagine is what got me into fintech. The lending company that I used to run, it was actually one of the first companies that went and said that I don't need a male guarantor even if there is a woman applying. I wish somebody had told me that earlier. Earlier I used to think it was just about me, about how good I am at my work is what is going to count. But I realize now that that is just one part of it, how good you are with
Cool. Welcome Paroma to our show. Such a pleasure to have you here. Like we were discussing that unfortunately we have very few female fintech leaders in India and globally as well, but you've been at the helm of so many companies and now are leading Revolut, so it's a real moment of pride for me to have you on the show, and I hope I have more women like you in fintech on my show going forward in future. But to begin things with, I would love to know as to what really made you pick up your interest in fintech. What was the triggering point?
First of all, thank you Radhika for having me here. It's super to be here and chatting with you like this. And to the first thing that you said about having more women fintech leaders on your show, I want to see more women fintech leaders. Period. And then obviously they would have accomplished that to merit a seat on your show.
Okay.
Now coming to your question about what got me into fintech, go back to 2010, which is 13 years ago, which was the first start of the wave of fintech in India. This was the era of Nokia 3310 handsets. On the phone, where you had a tiny screen on which you could just play a game called Snake, where you got SMSs with cricket scores.
Yeah, I remember.
And incoming calls were charged. Outgoing calls were also charged. So people would give missed calls asking somebody to call you back because incoming was lower than outgoing. That's the time frame. When the first company that I joined to do fintech, which was Airtel, thought of how can this device, which was now from an Airtel standpoint at that time in the Indian population, an Airtel connection was in 200 million Indian phones, how can we use that to make payments possible using that instrument? So I had this landmark interview. I'd already had about 7 years of a good start to my career in banking with cards, was considered leadership potential, top talent, which was fast track, getting promotions and things like that. Had the great opportunity to launch the cards business for Kotak, so it was all going fine. And then I had the opportunity to interact with somebody who was then the CEO for Airtel M-Commerce, who actually pitched this vision of imagine if we could do this. And that imagine is what got me into fintech, to actually imagine a world that did not exist and the opportunity to create that and make it happen. And that's what we did. I got into Airtel to get the first prepaid mobile wallet license out from RBI for a telecom company to get into payments. And that was the start of what is today an entire revolution that the country has witnessed over the last decade. I remember those whiteboarding sessions that we used to do to figure out how we can use this to make payments instead of just making calls and sending messages. But we did it initially with a USSD string. You had to type a string of numbers to initiate a payment, to then SDK solution, you burnt it on a SIM.
Yeah.
And then obviously the world changed. You had smartphones coming in, doing it on an app, and today it's universal. Today we talk about 87% of a 1.4 billion population using this to make payments, courtesy UPI.
Right.
But yeah, that imagining a world that did not exist and having the opportunity to create that is what got me into fintech.
Yeah, but my follow-on question is similar to what you said. I'm sure the innovation in the space is so much which must have gotten you stick through so many years. But apart from that, what is it that really makes you wake up every day with different energy to work for this industry, you know? Because I've seen so many leaders change their courses and careers and, you know, adapt different pathways as being a leader in different forms and roles. But what made you stick through in fintech for so many years?
The answer to it is people. People in two forms. One, consumers. The second, employees. And the reason is impact. So every morning, if I wake up thinking that whatever work I do through the 8 to 10 hours of constructive work that I put in through that day is going to bring about a material change in a consumer's life. And second, in joining me in doing that work, it is going to make a material learning difference in an employee's life. Are the two things that keep me going every single day. And that impact streak has been there. Like I spoke to you, starting from Airtel Money, where the first reason was to enable remittances on that. This was domestic remittances then. You had the entire migrant working community where the male in the family would leave their rural households behind. Eastern UP, Bihar, Bengal, Orissa, that belt. They would come into cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore to work. And they had to send money back every month. And in that time frame, the 2010-11 time frame I'm talking about, they would have to stand in queues at bank branches, deposit cash, and wait for that cash to transfer. And on the receiving side, bank branches aren't there in every village. The family would have to go to their district headquarters where the closest branch was and go and actually withdraw that cash. Till that time, the family had run out of cash and didn't have money to spend. That was the reality. And the fact, and mobile phones had penetrated in both those places. So the same male migrant laborer who's working in the city would call up their family every day and talk to them. So the thing was, how do you bridge that? That they have a need to send money, which they can't, it's so cumbersome. But they have this instrument in their hands which is already pervaded into their homes, and they were using that every day. How can you stitch the two together? And you realize that by creating payments on that, you've actually made a difference in the lives of those people. The ones who are sending money, they could finish their work of the day in the evening, just send money from their phone. Right? The ones who were in their back home in their villages, they wouldn't have to trek all the way in a bullock cart and then a cycle and then an auto rickshaw to get to a district headquarter and stand in front of a bank branch to take it out. They had received the money, they could go to their nearest recharge outlet and just take it out. You made a material difference. And the fact that your work was making that change happen was a big motivator. And then when I look at my employees and my team who are there with me, who are joining me in making that happen and working with me, and the delight that they derive out of making that difference, that gives me the joy at the end of the day that it's not just me. I'm also able to give this as a learning to other people and genuine joy of creating impact to other people.
I can sense that in your energy when you speak about your team and the smile which you had on your face, you know. It was much more than in your answer on fintech, you know. I see that you are more of a people's person because they are the ones who drive the change at the end of the day and make things happen.
So at the end of the day, it is about people. Products, product design, building products. Why do you do that? You do that to improve somebody's life. If you're not doing that to improve somebody's life, then I think you should be questioning yourself, why are you doing it? So you don't build a product for product's sake. You don't run a business for business's sake. You don't build technology for technology's sake. The best product design is the one that makes, in the simplest manner, the best change in a consumer's life.
Yeah.
The best use of technology is when it has actually impacted change and made people's lives better.
Right.
Otherwise, standalone product and technology, what does that even mean?
Yeah. So, yeah, I want to really know, why do we see lesser women consumers and women leaders both in the fintech ecosystem? Why is that the case still?
It's not just the fintech ecosystem, it's overall financial services inclusion, financial inclusion, right, which has been a buzzword for more than a decade now. And a lot of strides have been made towards financial inclusion.
Yeah.
But when you peel the first layer of that onion and you try to look at equality under financial inclusion, that's when these things surface. To understand that, you need to go back to social psychology of our country, and not just ours. This is prevalent in a lot of developing nations as well. The male of the household is seen typically as the breadwinner, right? So what do you mean by first level of financial inclusion is when a bank account has been opened in that family. So when the bank account gets opened, it is by default opened in the name of the male breadwinner in that household, right? Second, typically a lot of the women therefore still do not have accounts of their own. Now, even where women are working, are earning, and this I'm starting from the bottom of the pyramid, rural, tier 3, SEC D or NCCS C classification. They could be working in an urban environment as a domestic help in somebody's house, or as a nurse in a hospital, or any of these, or a street cleaner for that matter, right? Or in the rural areas, they could be working as farmhands, a tea garden picker, or they could be engaged in business. They could be weaving their own baskets. They could be making their own toys, etc. They could be running some kind of an enterprise. But whatever they earn still goes into, if it comes as cash, it is handed over to the man of the house, and the man of the house decides what he wants to spend it on. Wherever it has moved forward into banking, a bank account being available with the household, that money, if it is put into a bank account, it's put into a bank account in the name of the male of the household. So women typically do suffer from not equal inclusion when it comes to opening of financial accounts.
How do you think that can change?
One is awareness and education for sure, right? Awareness among women that they not just can but should have a bank account of their own, in their own name, right? It is a mindset. It's, even if you have good, well-functioning households, you don't necessarily have to have everything about the woman tied to the man. Right? Even within that setup, creating that awareness and that education and that comfort and removing the bias away for that woman to have an identity of her own, a bank account of her own. Identity today she does. By virtue of Aadhaar, even the women in the country have an identity document. So if they want to, they can. But they need to be pushed forward to do that. And second, in terms of industry, any payments to be made, whether a consumer payment to a woman or a business payment to a woman, if it can go into insisting that it goes into the woman's own account, rather than just an account number that is given by the woman, would go into sort of giving a fillip and a trigger to get the women to open an account in their own name and become a little more self-sufficient and in control of their own money and access to their own money that they spend their lives working hard and earning. So that's the inclusion side of it, one aspect of inclusion. The other aspect of inclusion is credit. When you're giving loans, the unfortunate reality of India still is that there are elements of men who still open shadow businesses in the names of their wives and daughters, where the women in the family don't necessarily know of the existence of the company either, and then apply for loans in their name. Now what happens on the credit score, a lot of companies therefore, while decisioning on when to give a loan, when there is a woman applicant, right, they will actually ask the woman applicant to get a male to stand guarantee. So either get your father or get your husband. Now, while that is being done to take care of a different problem, but imagine what it puts a woman who has a genuine right to be there, is running a genuine business and has genuinely deserving of getting a loan on their own terms. They still necessarily have to get a guarantor in the form of a father or a husband. Like, do I have to get my husband or father in front of a bank to deserve a loan? I don't think so, right? So that's the other mindset to take away, that the problem statement is not a problem statement of man versus woman in decisioning. If you were to take that as a variable out of the equation and try and figure out ways to assess what is a shadow company. The shadow company could also very well be in the name of a brother or a son, for that matter. So to work harder to, again, as I say, peel the layer of that onion and not fall for the first thing. Okay, man, woman, likely going to be that. So let's ask for guarantee. Problem gets taken care of. That's a very short-sighted view of it. To go deeper than that and go and address the real problem rather than this. And that's something that I did at the lending company that I used to run. It was actually one of the first companies that went and said that I don't need a male guarantor even if there is a woman applying. You have to prove your own credentials, whether you're a man or a woman. So, so these are the things where in financial inclusion, whether in terms of opening bank accounts or in terms of getting access to credit, there is a difference. So that's sort of the way I see where that gap exists in servicing of financial products. Now coming to the other part of your question about employees and women in leadership, it's not just in fintech. I think it is in corporate overall. I think it starts again right at the school level, where even now there is a disparity. Even now in rural countries there are child dropouts from school for various reasons at various stages. When the girl is growing up and can't deal with going to school on certain days in the month, they drop off. If the family has a financial crisis and they can send just one child to school, they would rather send the boy than send the girl. So the girl is the second choice if only they can afford to send both of them. That while it has improved significantly over the last few years, particularly in urban India, but it still remains. So that's at a school level. Then when the first level of cut happens at a college level, where STEM, which is your technology, engineering, management, those kind of courses, even now most of the applicants are male compared to women. So women still, even if they want to go to college, there is a higher propensity to take courses which are more oriented towards the arts or commerce rather than more STEM courses. And therefore that is the first level where the ratio starts tilting in terms of a lower percentage of women participation, girl participation in STEM, and a higher percentage of boy participation in STEM. That's one of the reasons we actually at Revolut, we rolled out the Revolut ERA scholarship.
What is that?
Okay, so ERA incidentally is another name of goddess Saraswati, who in the Indian mythology embodies learning and knowledge. So my thesis there was that you need to identify a talented woman young, even while she is in college. And I mean, I somehow feel that like I've done that more than 20 years ago. If somebody actually came to me and told me then that, you know what, I think you're good, I think you're going to get there with a bit of help and a bit of support, and I can see you right now and I'm going to do things for you. It's kind of that my way of saying that, okay, I can identify hopefully a talented young girl, and through that scholarship is my sign and Revolut's sign of showing that I think you're the ERA. You embody the knowledge and learning and talent, and I am there to support you, to hopefully have you have a great start to your career. So we actually did that in the top 4 IIMs and ISB. So we picked the top girl from the batch. And we actually award her this scholarship.
Wow.
And
That's
I'm
so
quite proud of the batch of ERA scholars that are coming out right now. I've personally met them.
Okay.
And, I'm sure they'll have a great future. I'm happy to be doing this. for them.
Wow.
And I'm it's great that Revolut supports a lot of these philosophies to be able to bring these subliminal changes in just the work cultural environment, and I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
So coming back to that, so yeah, the second level is at that college and studies level. Then the third level comes to when you start the start of your career. Now this, I'm gonna say it, I've noticed this, and I've noticed this over the last 2 decades. It is again one of the things that is changing, but needs to change more. Boys can get overconfident, girls can get underconfident. So in an interview setting, you will have typically boys do better because they inherently have a better orientation towards projecting their work better, or their aspirations better, or their capabilities better. Women tend to be naturally, inherently more humble, and don't feel a little uncomfortable talking about their
own
achievements and accomplishments. So if a boy and a girl are equally good, you'll typically see the boy presented better than a girl would. And in an interview setting where somebody just has half an hour or 1 hour to make a decision, guess which way it goes. So if you look at placement statistics from campuses, so first the ratio is already tilted at entry level in the STEMs. And then when it comes to actual recruitment from campuses, the ratio gets tilted further in terms of the better jobs going to the boys. That's the second level where it happens. Then comes actual life scenarios where even now, when a girl and a boy decide to get married, even now the expectation is, if the two of them are in 2 different locations, for the girl to make the adjustment. And that's the next level where girls start dropping off, changing their jobs, transferring, etc., to accommodate for an overall life or family situation. It's not yet, I mean, my wish is about it being fair. I mean, the partner that has the better job that works out for the family, that should be your deciding criteria. It shouldn't be about whether it's the new groom or the new bride. So that's the next level at which it does drop off and skew. And then the biggest level is maternity. As soon as a child is born, now there is a genuine biological need for the mother to obviously be there with the child. Nothing can take that away. There are some things the creator has made for women to do and men cannot do. Let's face it, that is there. But there are ancillary things around that apart from just that core, everything else that needs to be done around the child care somehow even now continues to fall on the woman. So one is, she does feel the pressure to do a lot more. It's a life that has come in, a new life, and a lot needs to be done. And along with that pressure, handling pressures of a job becomes an actual decision point in women's lives, and talented women's lives as well. And then there is the emotional factor of going, and that's the maternal instinct taking over, that I want to be with my child and spend as much time with my child. And the negative corollary of guilt pangs if you're not adequately there with your child, and the rest of the society doesn't help. I mean, if you're a mom who's away from your baby and something happens to the baby, before telling the dad that where were you, they'll obviously go and tell the mom that where were you and when something happened to the kid because you were away. So a lot of these factors go into, that's the biggest stage when women themselves, whether coerced by family or not, women themselves make the decision to take a break. And then what happens is, after the break, the return to work is still a challenge, because the pace at which the work environment is changing. Even the basic technology tools that are available for you to do work in, right? I mean, you earlier used to message, now you're on Slack, right? So just getting, earlier you used to use some Excel sheets to track your projects and Gantt charts. Today you use Jira, right? So the technological advancement on how you do the work, then the entire environment of developments that are happening, keeping abreast of them. So women often realize that once they've taken that break, when they want to come back in, it's so hard. Because they're not abreast of all these changes that have happened. And that makes it even more difficult. So therefore, in the career ladder, if you look at it, for women it becomes a very sharp pyramid. And oftentimes it feels insurmountable, I guess. And that is the essential glass ceiling, which in a way is your answer to the question on the women leaders. And this is not specific to fintech anywhere. That's probably the reason why it hasn't happened. Now coming to the good side of that picture, I mean, there are a few of us who've gone through this journey and got here, and it really doesn't have to be that hard. It's just about how you think about it and how you approach it at each of these stages. If you approach it right and do it right at each of these stages, you can get here. You can get here by having a balanced life too.
Correct.
So, and I do hope a lot of women are able to see that, make those right decisions and get there. I mean, my vision is, while in the span of my career, be able to actually see a boardroom where there is an equal representation of equally talented men and women sitting across the table in the boardroom, and that's a matter of course and not an exception.
This was one of the most comprehensive and so well explained answer, on this show at least.
Thank you. How much marks do I get?
There's no marks, just genuine.
Is there a hamper?
Appreciation. Hamper if you would have some competitors here right now. But we'll do coffee with Radhika.
Coffee with Radhika. Yours becomes Rasna with Radhika then.
It's a nice name. I'm wearing also like Rasna colored pants.
It brings a lot of brightness and cheer for sure.
But that's so well explained, and it gave me so much of food for thought that how on each levels the decision matters and how it matters in the larger picture.
Now, the reason I said it in this way is because any phenomenon, and whether in product design or in social impact, I mean, small to big, everything that you see is an outcome of a series of events that have led to it. It is never one thing that has driven it. So even in product design, a successful product versus one that is not really liked that much by customers, it's not one thing. It's a series of small and big things that have been done right by somebody versus a series of not so right things that may have been done in product design.
That's true.
So it's a first principles thinking topic, if you will, to understand the process that leads to something. And you know what, the first thing, and this I keep saying as well, the first thing to do is to step back and understand with a clear head and genuinely try to understand. And any problem, whether it's a business problem or a competitive problem or a consumer problem or a social problem, is keep peeling the layers of the onion till you really get to what is driving it. Then you'll be able to solve for it. Then there is nothing that is unsolvable when you've got there. Most of the time we just look at the surface and go and say, okay, this is what it seems like, let's just solve this, it'll take care of everything. But that's superficial, that doesn't stay.
That's true. It's just like a rocket ship. It has layers of layers, and then it needs to fall apart to reach to the main position where the actual substance is.
I'm glad you used the word rocket ship. We like to term Revolut as the rocket ship.
It matches also with you guys very well. But now that you spoke of Revolut, I'm very interested to know your story of joining Revolut, because it's a star in the European region and you're making it a star in India now. So tell me, how did you end up getting this opportunity at Revolut, and then how did you decide that it's time to move from Lendingkart to now building Revolut?
It's not a rocket ship yet. We're still a rocket ship under manufacture. The takeoff, you'll have to wait for the takeoff to happen, but it'll happen soon.
It will.
Yes, it will.
Yes.
My journey to coming to Revolut, I've spent 2 decades working. The first, broadly, if I look back on my career, I can divide it into 3 parts. The first 1/3 was in banking. in traditional banks, but I got to do innovative things in those banks, like launching the first co-branded cards for ICICI, then being a part of the team that launched the cards business overall for Kotak. That was like the first phase of my career where I think I learned my stripes. I call that my learning phase. In doing all of this, I managed to learn what it takes to get into payments. Subject matter learning, as well as a lot of the things that I share now, learning managerial skills or professional skills. So hard skills and soft skills, both I think I learned during that phase. Then comes the second phase, which was the Airtel Money phase, which was a very defining phase because it was definitely road not taken choice. The typical trodden career path would have been to continue within banking, have a set career, keep progressing, keep moving up the banking ladder over time, keep doing similar things, doing them slightly better, and generating a little more business, driving a little more innovation in products. That could have been one track, but deciding to take something that didn't exist, like talk about the era of the 3310 handset, right? Figuring out how to do payments on that, taking that leap of faith to go and say I want to join a team to solution for this was, and then taking it to 20 million customers over 5 years, and then becoming a mainstream product. That is my defining second phase, if you will, on seeing that it's possible, and that gave me the confidence that it's possible, that you can visualize something, you have a vision, and if you apply your mind to it can happen. And then the whole ecosystem also, if you're convinced and you have a plan and that's realistic, it's hard work, but the ecosystem also gets convinced to make it happen. Then the third phase is the tech world, because that is what was picking up during 2015, consumer tech. So then I moved to Flipkart at that time to help set up the marketplace business for Flipkart. One of the things I realized while at Flipkart, we got in first 100,000 then 200,000 sellers on the platform. It's brilliant numbers. So many small businesses wanting to sell on an e-commerce platform and be able to sell anywhere in the country. And then came time of Big Billion Days. So the Indian e-commerce system, and then you would probably relate to it as a shopper, right? A lot of India congregates their shopping around that festive season, and now the discount season of the Amazon Great Indian Sale and the Flipkart Big Billion Days. We had to ask the sellers to participate in that. At least 50% of the sellers were interested in participating. And at Flipkart, we had built a predictive demand planning engine as well, where we could, based on historical track record of browsers and searches, be able to predict projected demand for each SKU or each product which was listed over there. That's a fairly sophisticated engine, by the way. So you could match that. A platform like a Flipkart could actually tell you how much business a seller is going to get.
Okay.
And you had the sellers who were interested in listing the products. Where was the gap? The gap was in working capital finance. Because the aspiration was there, the demand was there. But you went across the typical lenders. Again, do you know what percentage of the sellers the traditional lenders could give a working capital loan to?
Very, very less than 5%.
No, that wasn't as bad. It was about 13% of the sellers, but 87% of the sellers were interested in participating, couldn't get access to a working capital loan. And then that was the genesis at that time of companies like Capital Float and Lendingkart, Capital Float now Axio, who started thinking about a model to be able to give loans and working capital loans to such sellers. Long story short, Lendingkart launched by giving loans to sellers on the marketplace. And then my quintessential passion for finance and getting to the actual need that has to be solved for came forth. That the logical next thing that I really wanted to do was to do that for myself and at scale. So one thing led to another. Lendingkart got their Series C funding happening, so they had plans to do it at scale, and I got the opportunity to join Lendingkart then and lead their business to scale that up. And then obviously we made the loans available not just to Flipkart sellers, Amazon sellers, your Oyo small hotels, your Zomato, Swiggy, small restaurants, your Make My Trip travel agents. So we actually grew by lending to this SME ecosystem. Helped build a 3,000 crore book. So by that time, if you figure out in the thread of the journey, I had kind of on the hard skills side been able to I knew payments. I think I know payments. I knew lending so the combination, but there wasn't a combination where I could then take it and build everything together in one place. And that's when coincidentally, and some of these things are probably preordained coincidences. That was around the time when Revolut was the first global company thinking of coming into India, and they were looking for a CEO to set it up for them, and they approached me. We got into conversations, and
Who approached you, like?
So Revolut has a very structured recruitment hiring team who scours, and now I'm on the other side getting them to do it, right? Who scours through the industry to find people that would match what they're looking for and proactively reach out to them. If such people are not interested, keep chasing them down till they're interested, because I think Revolut also knows what we want. Right now it's a little easier because I think people also want to work for Revolut, but at that time we had to do that. So so folks from the Revolut hiring team in the UK had figured out a set. I wouldn't say I was the only one. They'd figured out a set of people in India that they potentially wanted to talk to in order to see which of them they wanted to entrust the mantle of setting up their operations in India to. And I feel honored that they felt that I could do the job, and that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. Our Revolut hiring process, by the way, is very, very stringent. We have initially what is called a very close screening round, which is typically done by the people and hiring team, where we match candidates against fairly tight screening criteria of what we're looking for every role. Then you go through a functional skills round, where you are assessed for purely your functional knowledge on the function that you're supposed to handle. And in that, interestingly, we take away experience, we take away years of experience. We actually take away even the names of companies that you've worked at, because we actually take away things that could potentially introduce bias into the process. Because if you think that, somebody worked for XYZ company versus somebody worked for ABC company, you already have a preconceived notion that the one who worked for one company versus another could be better or worse. But if you take the company name away, you're genuinely judging that person on the functional skills that he or she brings to the table. So that's one in terms of functional skills round, where they actually assess for your knowledge in your own domain. Then we have something called a problem solver, which is quintessential case study style, but a real-time case study solving over an interview, where you're typically given a case or a genuine real-life business problem, which continues to remain a business problem within Revolut, and typically something from out of your domain. And the reason for doing that is you want to assess somebody's thought process and problem-solving orientation rather than specific answers. So a lot of people who've had experience or seen something in their own domain, if you give them a case around that, you can potentially easier answer because you've seen it happen. But if you're given a problem statement from a different domain, it actually helps you assess that person's approach towards a problem solving. And in that, interestingly, we do not look for the quality of answers. We look for the quality of questions.
Questions they ask.
So that's the other thing that goes into my evaluation philosophy of people as well. A lot of times the quality of an individual comes across more through the quality of questions they ask rather than just the quality of answers they give. If they ask the right questions, it's a matter of time before they'll arrive at the right answer.
Wow. How are my questions?
So far, you seem to be doing a good job. I think your audience will react to how good your questions were. And I'm put in the tight spot of answering them. Why am I doing this? That's the existential question.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so coming back, so that was the other
But what kind
interesting
of
thing.
case studies do you ask them about, which is non-work related?
No, it's not related to their direct area of work. So,
Okay.
for example, somebody could be interviewing for my head of operations, and I could be asking them a marketing and growth related question. Somebody could be interviewing for my people management role, and I would ask them a budgeting and finance related problem. So that's what I mean by from a slightly different domain.
Yeah.
So even in my process, for example, while they were trying to identify a CEO for the India business, the questions were all around outside of India, to areas where I wouldn't have had exposure to. How would you deal with these situations in different places that you don't have exposure to? So that's sort of the philosophy, to be able to assess somebody's approach to identifying and then solving a problem. And that's the skill set that makes the difference. And then when you've gone through all of this, you have a bar raiser round. So we have 5 values which we stand for at Revolut, and one of the things that I would go and say even now, and I think I'm 100% match with the values, because now even from my lens, one of my reasons for joining Revolut was the alignment of values, actually. So the first one is on getting it done. So an orientation to ensure that something that you picked up actually gets done. And it may sound easy, but it's saying a lot, because a lot of times, a lot of things which are started out can get waylaid because of that sheer doggedness and perseverance that is needed in a person to get things done, especially when there are problems. So that's one value. And in that interview round, since you asked me, the questions are typically around assessing real world examples where you demonstrated that. And the interviewers are, so we have training of interviewers internally, by the way. Interviewers are trained to assess through the quality of the answers whether the get it done orientation came through or not, or each value came through. So we have our internal process of, being qualified as a bar raiser interviewer itself is a big deal in our system, by the way.
By the way, one of our colleagues here was one of the first few hires in HR department for Revolut. She is from NUS. In Singapore, and then she was very excited, by the way, when you were gonna come. She said I was their employee, and then she's moved out here now though, so don't ask her why she left.
But the other thing, ironically, that seems to be happening from 2 years ago when I joined in April 2021, when a lot of people in India did not know Revolut. So they're like, where are you joining? Okay, where have you joined? Okay, what do they do? Who are they? From those questions to today, if somebody's worked at Revolut, that seems to have become CV value, you know. So I mean, in a way it's good. If you're grooming good people who the industry values, what's wrong with it?
Exactly. It's just a testament to your workplace and culture, that how good it was.
Well, I certainly hope so, and I certainly we can keep it up. So the first one is get it done. The second one is an attitude is never settle. So that's the second thing we look out for, the quality of not settling for the second best alternative, or not settling till you've got the right solution, whether in product design or a business problem answer, or an attitude to settle for second best. So we look for people who are not going to settle, not going to compromise, and going to push the envelope till you get to the right answer, the right solution in whatever area it might be. So the second value is never settle. The third value is think deeper. So the ability to, as we were talking about, how many layers of the onion can you peel? How deep can you go when you're thinking about a problem? Both vertically and horizontally. So how deep can you go into a specific problem, and how horizontal can you go in terms of figuring out the impact on multiple other things of what you're doing? So third is the think deeper. The fourth is dream team. How good you are as a team player, and how collaborative you are, along with how high a bar do you hold for yourself and your team. That whether you are okay to tolerate mediocrity or not, or whether you will push yourself and push your team along with you and pull your team up along with you and make it into truly a dream team and not just another team. So the dream team is the fourth value, and the last one is deliver wow. An orientation to do something which is beyond what has been defined so far. Do something, whether again in product design or in business growth or in people practices or in any area that you may be working in, the urge to deliver something which is a wow, which is a first time in the industry, or where consumers sit back and love you for it. So those are the 5 things that are assessed in the bar raiser interview. So we put a lot of thought into our process of hiring. So that was kind of my experience. For leadership roles, I mean, in my case as well, you have a simple problem solving. What I explained as a simple problem solving earlier, the case study. You have a complex problem solving as well, where the problems that are thrown to you are more complex in nature. And then you have a people management and hiring round about what is your own hiring philosophy and building a team philosophy and managing people philosophy. Again, how high is the bar that you hold for your own team? How will you make that process happen? And the other thing is, how will, in my kind of a case, how will you industrialize that process? Today, we're 2,000 employees in India. From the first 5 employees in April 2021 to in 2.5 years' time, reaching the 2,000 mark, while keeping the process this tight and the hiring bar high. It's not just about doing it ad hoc in one-off cases. It's about industrializing that process. So what's your orientation towards creating frameworks out of what you think about it and bringing it in? So that's on the people hiring and people management.
It's quite unique.
It is unique, and which is why, I mean, getting a job in Revolut is not a joke. So which is why
I must congratulate my colleague for making it there.
No, I'm seriously proud of each and every one of the employees who have come in, and therefore I think we've actually managed to put a dream team together. And yes, that's probably why the industry also values people who are working at Revolut. But what we would love to believe is, at our own rocket ship, we give the kind of opportunity for people to create the impact so that they choose to continue to remain here and work for this vision. The world is always open for anybody.
I love how you're taking the word rocket ship with you.
Well, if people get a chance to board a rocket ship, and if they say no to it,
whose loss it is.
I'm not commenting.
But we'll come to a rapid fire round, and I have some really
Then you need to give me a hamper for this now with Radhika if I do well on the rapid fire.
You have to give me another meeting with you for me to give you the hamper.
Paroma part 2. Well, depends on how many people watch it, whether you come back to me and say, Paroma, people liked it, so I want a Paroma part 2.
I loved it, so
I am enjoying this conversation. I'm actually enjoying the conversation, and I'd love to figure out another time when we can continue the chat.
Yes, but starting with the rapid fire, what's the best and the worst piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
Best piece of advice, first, be yourself. Never apologize for who you are, what you do, what you want to do. That's something I got fairly early on in life and in my career as well. And again, I'm going to link this back to the woman topic. A lot of times, not just women, even men, do things in order to feel accepted or feel liked. So the best piece of advice that I've had is, be yourself, do the things that feel right to you, and things will fall in place. Worst piece of advice.
It's actually harder to think of worst piece.
I can tell you, worst piece of advice was on campus, campus recruitment. Take a consulting job with a Big Four because it pays you the most and is most glamorous. That was again.
That remains to be the worst advice.
I am telling. Okay, sorry to my Big Four friends. No offense, but No, I mean, there are careers for different people. Different people are suited
Yeah.
to different jobs. But
But if people make it look like Bollywood, glamorous from the outside, but they don't talk about the realities which happen.
it's not just that. So there's a tendency, okay, to trot the, I mean, go on the trodden path. So on campus, in B schools in particular, it's still this notion of if you're good, you should be in a consulting job or in an investment banking job, or you should be the highest placement on campus where you got the highest package, and that's like a badge value. But what happens is if you put those as your goals, and people will advise you to do that, and that's an advice, like you said, which still remains. If you do that, you close your eyes and your worldview to the real opportunities which are out there, which will set you up for a successful career through making an actual difference. So the choice, I mean, the reason I say that I was worsted, and I'm glad I didn't go with it and did not heed that. I got the opportunity to always choose the road not taken.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Robert Frost's poem, right? Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both.
Yeah.
And be one traveler long I stood, looked down one as far as I could to where it went in the undergrowth.
Do you remember these lines?
The other thing that I did get a chance to cultivate is a good memory, and that's the other thing that's needed. So
let me ask you in the memory, how many names of the 2,000 employees do you remember?
I think I know a lot of names, not just names. Okay, I can tell you this. I have an eye for observing things which stand out.
Okay.
I know the stickers people put on their laptops.
Oh,
so
nice.
I can identify from the laptop on a particular table, even if the employee is not there, oh, he or she has come into office today.
Okay.
No, actually, that you could call it a quirk of mine, but I actually think that eye for detail and the eye for observation is a very, very important thing. Whether at work, again, I go back to whether you're designing a product or knowing your employee or within your family or in your home. I'm going to translate this to the home. I mean, my kind of life, I'm traveling, I'm out at work, all of that.
Yeah.
But if something has run out in the kitchen, I will still be able to spot it when I go back home. And my domestic help actually says, ma'am, you were out of town this week and you come back. How do you know that this has gone down? It's because I kind of make the effort to, and it requires effort.
Yeah.
Okay. And it requires mindfulness. It requires to be in there, in that moment, to actually absorb everything that's around you. And when you make the effort to do that, it'll remain. More often than not, we as busy human beings have a tendency to have our mind cluttered. When you're walking into the room, you could be thinking of a dozen other things, problems going on, etc. Things you have to take care of after you move on. Like when I'm talking to you, I'm telling you right now, I don't know whether you feel it, but I do have meetings lined up after this. I could have spent that time thinking about, I'm getting delayed, I have a meeting to get to after this. What should I be saying in that meeting? It could be there in your head, it's natural, but I don't. I'm fully in. All I'm thinking about as well is this conversation, this room, and I've noticed even that standing in the corner, and if next time I come back here and that is actually somewhere else, I'll tell you, you moved your furniture around in the room. It's consciously cultivated that an imprint is left on your mind, and if you do that, it translates in different ways. I mean, if somebody shows me an Excel sheet with a business plan, I'll remember the last number, and if somebody's changed that number next time around, someone's like, okay, what led to this change?
Oh my god.
If somebody's presented a document with something in a certain form and said something in that document, and if that's missing in an iteration, I'll be like, why did that go away? Did you rethink that? But it manifests itself in different forms.
Your 8-year-old should know this, that you have read the 120-page document very, very carefully. Since you observe so much and you have an eye for detail.
So yes, that I would say to anybody, that more than so hard skills are in their own place, but you need to cultivate skills like this, which is curiosity, to learn things, openness to try new things out, observation, the genuine effort made to observe things that are around you, and eye for detail, including level of detail in what you're absorbing as well as what you're producing in terms of your work or your output, and mindfulness, just being fully into whatever you're doing at any given point in time. So that always stands you in good stead. Anybody.
That's true. But And next question would be like, what would be an alternative career for you?
Actually, can I pick 2 alternative careers?
Yeah. You
One,
already had solid backup plans, huh?
not backup plans. These are things I actually
Wish to
aspire
do.
to do
Okay.
when I have the time to do it. One is an author,
Oh.
and
Now we know how you remember the poem so well.
and the other is a teacher.
Okay.
So
what subject?
more management actually,
Okay.
But-
Like leadership?
leadership and management. Yes, author. I have had my share of experiences, and I would love to pen them down in a book for it to remain for posterity.
What are you waiting for?
Time.
That never comes. You have to make space for
I
it.
shall, but they're prioritized. So one of the things that you need to do to make time is ruthless prioritization.
Yeah.
There are 2 aspects to prioritization. One is simultaneous prioritization, the other sequential prioritization.
Yeah.
Simultaneous is at any given point of time. Right now, if I'm prioritizing being here, that means I've deprioritized everything else to be
Yeah.
here. So which is at any given point of time, prioritize what's most important to you in a rank order of hierarchy. The other, sequential prioritization, what is most important to you at a point in time. Right now, what is most important to me,
Building this rocket ship and getting it.
2 things actually
Yeah.
in life. Yes, having this rocket ship not
Yeah.
just take off and then combust in air, but have this rocket ship actually take off. And I mean, a great time that we're doing this right after the Chandrayaan to actually have a successful landing. So land Revolut's rocket ship successfully in India is what I'm certainly focused on the professional front. And on the personal front, since you made mention to have my 8-year-old grow up to be a good human being.
Yeah, nice. And who would you call your mentor?
My mentor, I think I mentioned that yes, if you're watching this, the CEO of Airtel Money who I joined. Because one, like I said, he had the vision to see something which nobody else did. And the ability to get people like us to be able to see that vision and buy into it and join him in making that happen. That's something that I try to do right now. I mean, Revolut didn't exist in India, right?
Yeah.
So it's in my head what I want to make of Revolut in India. And it's for me to be able to paint that picture for other people to be able to see that vision or as much part of it as they can and then decide to be a part of it.
Right.
So I've learned that from him. Second, he was an absolute hard taskmaster.
Yeah.
I mean, his bar was so high, and the thing about a high bar then, and I realized this in hindsight as well, and I'm sharing this for people who want to learn from other people's experiences as we spoke about it, is at that time there were times when we would feel so irritated. I mean, how can he be pushing us? I did this is good enough, right? How can he be pushing us to make this even better, right? But now I realize that he saw something in us that we didn't at that time, and that is what made us go beyond what we already knew we were capable of to do something extra and achieve. And that gentleman has groomed 4 CEOs in India today.
Which ones? If you don't mind.
I won't name the other CEOs, but I can name. I mean, I'm talking about you, Sriram. I mean, and then those of you CEOs, if you're watching, if you come from, as we call the Sriram Academy of CEOs. But, so he was the person who.
Nice.
So who had this bar of excellence to have people deliver at a different level to what even they thought possible. So I keep telling this to my team as well, that one of my jobs is to help you become the best version of who you can be.
Yeah. That's a true leader.
And if I can help people achieve that,
that's the ultimate redemption.
That's a reward for me. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the second thing that I learned from him as a mentor. And the third thing was equality as a male. He was a male leader, but he was one of the first people that I saw more than a decade ago who would do things to give a fillip to talented women potential leaders that he saw in order to enable them to perform at the same level and be able to deliver at the same level that he thought they were capable of.
Yeah.
So I actually had this 8-year-old son that you're talking about, he was born 8 years ago during that time when I was there. And I joined back at work 3 months, exactly 3 months after. So those were the days when you got a 3-month official maternity break. This is before the 6-month maternity break era. And
Revolut now gives 6 months.
Yes, we give 6 months. We're good on paternity as well, because one of the other things, since we are on that particular topic, I do believe childcare is not the only prerogative of the mother.
Yeah.
Right? And paternity break is a way of helping men realize that there are responsibilities that they also have towards their wife and towards their newborn child, and get them to, obviously one is the joy of spending time with their newborn child, and the second, take on certain responsibilities, so that is set up early on to create a hopefully more equitable household in the next generation than what earlier generations up to ours has been used to. So so coming back to just finishing off that maternity story, so you had a 3-month break at that time, and then you had the option to extend that break as a leave without pay subsequently, and most people did that, which is what led to the 6-month bill in the first place, because you don't feel fully ready. You're not physically fully ready to come back to work before 6 months of having had a child. But after the 3-month threshold, a person like me becomes impatient, that I want to be in touch with what is going on at the workplace, at work, in the industry, etc. And that workplace created the opportunity for me to come back with flexi working. And that this is a time when it was a full-fledged work environment, a full-fledged office environment. It wasn't the hybrid days. Hybrid days today makes it easier, right? But at that time you had to. So creating a flexi work environment for me to come in for a few hours, go back. So I would come in for 2 hours in the first half and then 2 hours in the second half, and creating an environment that was okay was brilliant. And another thing I can share with you, at that time, I mean, this was one of the firsts that was happening. There were people who actually said that we're working 8-10 hours a day, she's working 4 hours, how can you do this? This is bias. But I remember the leader then actually saying publicly, what she brings to the table in 4 hours, a lot of people don't in 4 weeks. And that shut everybody up. So again, I'll go back and tell this to even women. There is, and this I want to talk about, because sometimes there's a sense of entitlement. And so sometimes in an effort to be equitable towards women, companies also tend to bend over backwards, right? And that should not be done, right? So even women should aspire to bring as much value as they can of every moment that they're spending to the workplace. And if you do, then don't shy away from putting your hand up and saying, okay, can you then make arrangements to accommodate for whatever needs I may have, and particularly at that maternity stage. So it has to be a two-way street. It has to work both ways. It cannot be an unfair advantage to anybody. But if you bring value to the table and then you put your hand up, I think companies should be willing to then make arrangements to accommodate.
And I'm so glad your mentor did that, being a male leader in such a big company.
And more so coming from a male leader.
Exactly. What do you think has been the cost of your success?
Time.
The
one thing, if you ask me, that I'm poor, I'm time poor. So I have to balance time between my work commitments at this level, child rearing responsibilities at this level. At this stage, parents' health starts deteriorating, so being there to take care of them as well, and then ensuring at least bare minimum physical activity to remain fit, because that's the other thing that suffers in this. But the other thing I believe is that way my fitness does come first, because if I don't stay healthy, I don't stay fit, everything else collapses around me, whatever I'm talking about. So, but in between doing all of this, just sheer leisure time to just put my feet up and do nothing That's something that
Missing right now.
is missing right now. So
Yeah, but like you said, you're an impatient person, so I don't think so.
I would
For
say
how long would you
impatient.
like to sit like that?
Yes, I am an active person, so it's not like I can put my feet up and do nothing for a long time. I do get restless after that. But there are also times when I feel that that luxury would be good. like today, after yesterday's hectic day, and have somewhere to go after this. But I would have loved to have been able to put my feet up for some time. But
what is that one thing you wish you knew much earlier in your life? That like what you think to yourself, that how did someone not tell me this earlier, or how did I not get to know of this?
The fact that people and how you are with them is one of the most important things, right? When you want to do some piece of work, it's how good you are that makes a difference. When you want people to do a lot of things, how good you are with people is what makes that difference. But I wish somebody had told me that earlier. Earlier I used to think it was just about me, about how good I am at my work is what is going to count. But I realize now that that is just one part of it. How good you are with people that you work with is equally, if not more important in getting things done. And I wish I knew that early on. I could have had a better head start. But,
really?
Better late than never.
Yeah, exactly. And because our show is named Wiping Out the Norm, I'd like to ask you of one instance where you think you have wiped out the norm in some way or the other.
I would like to think that I've done that multiple times. Which one do I pick? Okay, let me pick the earliest that I can think of and the latest that I can think of. The earliest I can think of is...
You've actually given me a nice layer over this question, which I can ask others also in my interview.
Sure, then I'd love to compare notes. It's a good way of getting to know people, actually. Earliest goes as far back as in school. So I happen to be a school topper. But then you expect school toppers to go do their engineering, and I did not. I went to do a 3-year graduation with honors in physics. So physics is a subject that I loved, and I still do, by the way, and I did that. But
then rocket ship is the nice word that we use today.
Yes, absolutely.
Serendipity, you see.
I love that. But the point is, it's not that choice, but what led to that choice is what I wanted to talk about, which is wiping out the norms at that time, if you will. The norm was that, okay, you're a bright student who's got in their high 90s, you sit for IIT entrance exams and you get to the IITs was the standard norm. Not choosing to sit for that entrance exam was a choice. And I can tell you this right now, I think everybody, so including my school principal, was taken aback, because the school also likes their brighter students to get into those institutes, and they feel proud about it too. And I asked my parents, and I remember this from my father. My father's been another influence in my life, by the way, both my parents and my grandparents. My family has always believed that I can do anything that I set my mind to, and I'm really fortunate to have that belief and faith of my family. But when I wasn't sitting for it, my father actually sat me down separately one day, and because so many questions were being asked, why isn't she doing it? And she said, do you really know what you're doing? Like, everybody seems to believe that you can and you should. You don't want to do it. And I remember telling him that if I I go to one of the engineering colleges, it'll take me 4 years to get to IIM. If I do a 3-year degree course, I'll get to IIM in 3 years.
Okay.
You could say I was clear. I was crystal clear about.
You knew your last destination and the time you want to take to go there.
Exactly. So that was in a way wiping out the norm about knowing where you wanted to go and follow that other path to get there. And the latest is, wiping out the norm when I decided to take on the challenge of bringing Revolut into this market. Right? Again, I had a good career in the Indian fintech ecosystem. I could have worked with any of the Indian companies. As of now, there is no global fintech which has really landed and made a mark in India. Revolut at that time was not really a known name within the Indian ecosystem. It was, if you think about it now, it was a very difficult choice to make in a way that, you want to take a relatively unknown brand, which is a global brand. You don't even know whether you'll be able to get them to land or succeed here. But to me, the answer came really easily that I want to do this because this will make a material difference. That's the other wiping out the norm of making the unpredictable choices.
That's so interesting.
And then I will conclude this with the last two lines of that Robert Frost poem.
How?
I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Right. Yeah, wow. I love how you concluded it with that line. It really synced in with the question I asked and with the theme of this show. So thanks for making it so lovely. Sometimes it's not the interviewer but the person sitting next who really makes it happen and adds the glitter to the gold. So thanks for adding all the shiny nest with your answers and giving your time. Really enjoyed speaking with you, Paroma.
Well, thanks for having me over once again, Radhika. And yes, I completely enjoyed this conversation. For most of it, I actually forgot that it was being recorded somewhere. I was just in the flow of conversation. So kudos to you for bringing it out and making me comfortable, making it so comfortable to have what was a good conversation.
Thank you. Like you said, curiosity takes you places. So curiosity takes me to places where you yourself didn't imagine yourself to go. Yesterday only someone told me that you ignited certain light bulbs within me which were not bright enough, because you walk on a certain treadmill every day, right, doing the work that you're doing. So conversations like these really take you in the past and make you think about the experiences that you have, and also take you in the future to tell you that what is certain things that you're missing out on and are still yet on your list and yet to be done. So I'm glad that it happened to you as well and you loved it.
Thank you.